212-931-5731. Hey guys, first of all, thank you for clicking. You're about to watch a new video or another video on YouTube. And before you do, 212-931-5731. If you are getting value out of my YouTube videos, what I'm doing in my text community is bonkers. It's instant, it's access, it's exclusive, and it's just been a lot of fun. And I've just enjoyed texting back and forth with a lot of you. 212-931-5731. I'm sure they're editing something, team. I know how you do it. Please join my texting community, and now enjoy this YouTube video. This portion is like with me, so I think this is when you need to get selfish. Like you need to ask your question. Hiring is guessing, firing is knowing. Like you gotta go fast. That's how you get shit done. That's how you figure stuff out.
This is the television, and the television is the radio.
So 4Ds, motherfuckers.
That sample like guitar amplifiers, and so it's a pretty niche thing. But yeah, I spend 80% of my time spending content around that stuff and hard to find amplifiers. I'm on a mission to cover every amp ever.
That's cool.
Which is too much.
And where are you based?
Out of Nashville.
Nashville.
So I just started working with Jonathan, but my background just started last week.
Mm-hmm.
My background is visual brand strategy, and I've done a little bit of work with him in the past. Yeah. So
Awesome. What was your name? I'm sorry?
Shelly Moore.
Shelly. That's okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm Adley, I'm from Nashville also. Personal brand, content creator, takes on a lot of different placements. Mostly we create a Facebook Watch Show, the Adley Show. We average 3 million weekly viewers now. I host for Best Vines, Instagram network, pretty friendly. Just started coming on to revamp that show, so it's more like to do a rundown, like a daily.
Yeah, I remember it.
Here's what you missed in the viral space.
Mm-hmm.
So just started that, revamping that, creating pockets for revenue for them, and all in all, growing that to be more. It's not to have a live and die. I'm pumping out 2 Facebook episodes a week, but how to scale, so I've got a bottleneck because I'm right now.
I understand.
Yeah.
I'm Brad. I do a woodworking and DIY channel, so it's my own personal brand. So I'm doing content around YouTube videos on teaching people how to do woodworking and home repairs, things like that. Most of my stuff is based off sponsored content, mid-rolls, product placement, those type of things. But I have a growing piece of my business, which is digital plan download. So download a PDF and I teach you how to make a coffee table and that. So that's one of my big things I'm trying to figure out is how to double down and leverage those.
Understood.
Jordan Stupar, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, came here. I have a company called Sales Domination System. I come from a sales background. I actually met you about 5 years ago at Grant Cardone's office. And what we do is we build a CRM product similar to Salesforce, so on and so forth, with a lot of extras. And so that's what we're doing. And that's what
SaaS.
I'm doing SaaS.
Understood. Good to see you again.
Justin Jones at Grand Marketing Excellence Group, we're an agency that drives tourism to like cities, states, vacation rentals, hotels. The primary book of business is vacation rentals and hotels. We're property management companies that manage hundreds of properties. They hire us to help
Drive leads, revenue. Yep. Understood. Where are you based out of, sir?
Knoxville, Tennessee.
I'm Jody Stein. I work with a company called Earthscapes. I am pretty much their sales and marketing team. We are professional landscaping based in Chattanooga, and we are looking to grow. So relatively new in the media branding. We're trying to kind of solidify who we are and get in front of the right people using some new different techniques.
Is it a individual business or is it a franchise model?
It's individual.
One company that's servicing this general area or? Awesome. Pleasure.
Hi, my name's Rob, and 10 weeks new to Chattanooga, just moved here. So
From?
My background is I was Fortune 100 company, a degreed engineer, was in HR for basically 13 years, and wanted to own my own business, got into HR in real estate in 2006, the worst kind ever. So that was a lot of fun. But we burned through that, and we ended up having a retail company with the Christie's brand. And so we carried Christie's in the Tampa Bay market, and we grew that to 13 offices and 225 agents. And I just decided I wanted to make a change, and so sold out and wanted to get back into my HR roots. And so now I own a coaching company, executive coaching company that I started called the Return on You Investment, which is basically a play on that you're the CEO of your life. And so everything that's in a CEO's role and description and job and responsibilities, you're in control of in your life. And so I have a web platform that I deliver online courses with, membership-based, and then I also do one-on-one coaching.
I understand.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Angie Kaiser, and I'm from Vaynerchuk, and I do content creation and influencer marketing.
I've heard of it. Yep. And you do that as a service for others?
Yes.
Understood.
Well, no, not as a service for others. It's through our accounts. So we
I
work
see.
with brands.
I
We're
see.
with brands.
Got it. You have media properties, or you have your personal property?
Personal.
Yours.
Yes.
It's you.
Yes.
Understood.
Yes.
Awesome.
I'm Stephanie Baker, and I'm from just outside of Houston, and I own a company where we go in and we create outdoor learning spaces in schools. And we build vegetable gardens and teach kids how to grow their own food and harvest it, but then it's all built around using the garden as a tool for teachers to teach science. So we send our educators in, and they are the classroom teachers for outside, for the outdoor classroom.
And your client in that scenario is the school system?
The individual schools, because
The individual schools.
I don't even want to go near the district because I don't.
And individual schools have enough autonomy at a superintendent or a principal level to make that kind of call?
Principals.
Nice. Cool. That's really neat. What's up, gang? Good to see you guys. I know you guys super well. I guess, actually, let's do it that way. I mean, actually, why don't you introduce yourselves for context for everybody else?
Oh yeah, so we're in the Mentors program, and it's been like a year now, over a year. So just working kind of intimately with now the Sasha group, and we're kind of not on our own. That's like a terrible phrase, but we still reach out when we need help. But just working the steps to scale the business.
In the furniture business in
Right.
Florida. And your names for everybody?
Amanda.
John.
Awesome. So let's go back around. Let's rock and roll. What can I answer?
So dude, I'm so nervous. I love you so much. For real.
Thank you, man. That's very sweet. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, no, I mean that. No,
So in a world where obviously I'm always so like petrified to always bring the most value, I think what's gonna be interesting, and it's a really fun starting off point, I think it's super important to think about, are you looking for affirmation, or are you looking to fill in something that I wasn't able to touch on, since I have to go somewhat broad at times? And both are cool. Like, I think it's wild to think about how valuable affirmation is. Like, sometimes it's just the push, like I always talk about the story of like being late to swimming. It wasn't affirmation, it was that my sister started swimming, I heard it, playing knock hockey, and the thought that my 6-year-old sister as a 9-year-old was gonna swim before me forced me to run, jump in the pool as a non-swimmer, scared shitless of swimming, and literally in the next 8 minutes figure out that I was swimming, and then spend the next decade trying to make pretend I swam first. But it's one of the few things she didn't let me like win. So, I really appreciate that comment. And then what that makes me do is tell that story to say, hey, are you thinking about it? Is it gonna be affirmation because and you've felt the nuances and what's to double down? Or is there something that I haven't been able to touch on that you've been curious about? Or, which I'm sure some of you know this, I think so much of my strength is pulling from opposite directions. So if you listen long enough, the amount of potential contradictions, while what I think it is balancing from both sides, may lead to a clarification need. Because if you're not pulling from both, then you can't pull it off. I think a lot of times I'm like, man, I'm throwing so many ingredients at everybody that what I'm starting to realize is like, fuck, all of it doesn't work if you're missing one of the, I'm like, why is it working and why is it not? Why are people walking in and like completely, like whether from external, internal, transforming, and why are others not? Which led me to insecurities and all that stuff. But when that's done, I'm like, right, you need to do all these things. It's like a really well-cooked meal. If you hold off the spice, then it's just not, like there's a lot there. So I think that's a good way to frame this up for everybody to think about. I don't know if that's inspired maybe a question, but.
So I had my side thing
Yep.
kind of become my main thing. And I left my family business, working with my dad, and I was gonna take that company over until
Right.
I wasn't. And so now.
Is there disappointment in the system with that?
No.
Good.
But here's the thing, I ran his business, and now I just hired Shelly.
Yes.
You know, and I have something that's really working, and I'm scared about building this culture because I didn't always have the control over that culture, and that was my excuse to not do it, to not always.
You're not sure if it's in you or not because you had the ability to not even have the ability to do it.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I think even the fact that you're thinking about it already makes me optimistic that you have it in you. The fact that you even recognize that question means that it's something that you value.
Yeah.
I mean, here we are. You're nervous to ask me a question, and the place where you naturally go is actually caring about culture, which already makes me know that you're probably gonna do a decent job with culture.
What would you say? How do I shape it, even in the small?
By overvaluing human beings. It's not super complicated. If you're playing long, like I'm not Mother Teresa, I'm just playing long. I mean, when I look at D-Rock, Mickey, and Jesse and think about, we're now over 20 fucking years of collective and just 3 people I'm looking at, right? And Nick, I mean, like this is ludicrous. Like we keep people, I mean, Nick is doing such interesting shit on his own right now, and I watch that and I'm just like pumped. I'm rooting for him so heavy. I don't even have time. I'm so busy, I don't even have time to tell him that directly. I use these moments to double dip to like keep telling him, keep going. It's true though, you know, and like that's like not the way my dad would have fired Nick at the first indication of a leisure apparel brand that he felt like everybody had to do it for him. Like, you know, you just lean into people. It's not super complicated. Fucking are sitting here because I promised Mickey that if he joined VaynerMedia, I'd open something in the South. That is real talk. There was no good strategic reason to open this office, you know, other than I promised Mickey, you know, and he luckily went to like baseball camp here after I came on a trip here and like fell in love with the city. So I would say it's actually stunningly easy. Do you value people more than you value short-term profit? Most people don't, which is fine. I don't, but it's really easy when you care about it. I think where you have to be careful of is where I'm at my weakest, which is you create entitlement because you lack candor when you need to make people actually perform on a business. I think my shortcoming, my kryptonite has been ironically something nobody would believe on the way that I communicate publicly, which is I've been too soft, which has created entitlement. A lot of the stuff I put in the system is trying to coach myself into it. Fire faster, be more, you know, like these are real things, you know, so I'm a bleeding heart. Like I'd be a great guidance counselor and a great therapist and a lot of other great things. You know, it's where some of the crossover is different than me than others that people have worked for. I'm different. And that's why I feel different, and it's true. And it makes me have less economics in the short term, and people out there make fun of me for that. It's only because they're judging in the second quarter. Let's see how this all plays out. So, it's real easy. Just choose it. You know, I think the question becomes, what you might be struggling with is you see certain things that do work for that business on doing things that maybe you naturally wouldn't do, but you haven't seen the alternative yet. You're like, oh right, but dad or whoever, you know, mom, they do that and fuck, that actually does make more money. You just haven't seen the alternative yet. My brother, my dad, others make more profit short term, but they never build the size of businesses that I build. So, I don't know, last time I checked, like 5% of $1 billion is more than 29% of 40 million. Last time I checked. You have any questions? I know it's early, but there might be something.
Very
But there might be something.
I would say, I mean, and I just asked him this earlier, like with my history of visual brand strategy, I was less into the knowledge of all of the ad space, all that allows you as far as technical stuff like geofencing,
Yes.
things like that. So how is just a visual creative, how do I stay abreast of all of those changes? Because that gives me, every change that I see and how it displays gives me different ideas for how I can speak into their ad.
By fully committing to it. I think
What are the ways to kind of,
by doing the work to be educated on everything.
okay.
By reading, watching videos, by putting in the education work. The biggest issue when people go from something bigger to something smaller is the speed and the needs become way different. There's so many people in corporate right now are trying to join smaller startups, and they obviously come and talk to me because I've known them for, we had a client from Unilever, you know, you worked on Unilever at some point? That's what I thought. Jen Bremner, I sat down with yesterday. You know, yeah, who like, you know, we didn't necessarily have the greatest run with, and she's looking to make a move from Unilever to a mid-sized company, and you know, I even though we didn't have the greatest rub, I do actually think she's got chops, and so I was giving her advice of like, hey, you know, we were talking about that today with the Sasha group, Sasha versus Vayner, like, you guys care in a different way. Like it's your livelihood, it's not even caring, surviving versus, you know, getting a different job somewhere else. Like, so the speed in which, but you still have things that you can really bring to the table. You have to go through the filter of practicality and speed instead of ideology and lack of speed. And that's something you have to get used to.
How'd you know that?
I know it because I'm really good at pattern recognition. And like, it's why I listen. I talk a lot about me listening over talking because I'm always, especially I have such a bad rap because I do interrupt my guests on my podcast, but it's because I already know. I know what they're saying. And I'm thinking about the audience, not my guest. And if they're about to spend 9 minutes and I know they have to leave for another appearance somewhere, because that's, just so everybody knows, I'm not like this chill podcast where it's what you do for the day and it's all I do for a living. Like my guests and I are on a very tight schedule, and I'm saying to myself, this woman, this man is about to talk for 9 minutes about something this audience fully knows and is gonna be complete vanilla. So now I'm gonna interrupt, add my 2 cents that brings value and move them forward. And so I'm willing to get judged and ridiculed by my audience to bring more value to my audience. I believe my interrupting on my podcast is the single nicest thing I'm doing for my audience, while my audience scrutinizes it me for the most, but I'm willing to take that scrutiny to bring value. Because what the audience doesn't know is what the show would have looked like if I let them run, which is we would have gotten to 2 things, pure vanilla and see you tomorrow. That is about being consumer centric. That is about pattern recognition. That's about knowing. And so just hearing it and knowing it, which goes to the most interesting part, which is you two can win. You just have to have humility and honesty with each other and over communicate instead of thinking it in your heads.
So I'm a video creator. I do it for myself as an entertainer, but also for brands in this space, funny content.
Yep.
You know, run those Facebook ads, whatever. I started as a musician, was on The Voice, toured with my coach Blake Shelton for a while. Hated being at the mercy of the system and stood behind a desk giving me permission to be successful. He ate Cheerios instead of oatmeal that day, and so he hated the song. I took, worked on for 3 years to get that meeting. And one night I got an opportunity to create for an Instagram network, and just do more personality-driven stuff. And I put chickens in a bathtub, and it got 19 million views overnight. And it changed my life on Facebook. And I was like, that's easier. I'm gonna do more of that. That feels good. I have an idea.
You can actually be creative.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah, and so I loved it just as much as singing. Started singing too, like chickens and, and whatever it was. But people loved that because it was authentic. I wasn't trying so hard. And so fast forward, I've been losing money making videos every day. I had a blog 17 people watch. I didn't care. I freaking loved it. And then Facebook Watch got a hold of us to make original content, so we do 2 episodes a week for them. And now we're just getting lots of really cool opportunities for distribution, different strategic
Makes sense.
partnerships, and I'm having a ball.
Good for you.
I just hired my first group of people to try to remove the bottleneck, some in editing, some just taking over emails, and some things I don't need to do.
Let me give you a couple of quick pieces of advice on that. 83% of somebody else is better than 100% of just you. The number one mistake that people make when they start to delegate is they make a subjective opinion in their mind of what that should look like, and that's not the way to scale.
I think that's going to be my biggest hardship.
100%.
One woman band.
100. That's why I jumped in back to,
Yeah.
That's the game. The game is that I've never even talked to D-Rock. Like when we started the vlog, I had to watch a little bit because I had to teach him, hey, you're complete, and that's who he was at that raw state. Mindset is to make the best YouTube video. You can't put the part where I'm telling Mickey to fire Susan. She doesn't know yet. Like that's gonna be a problem. You know, you can't put the part of after we have the client meeting, I look at one of my teammates and say, that client's a fucking idiot. That's bad. Like, so at first I had to watch, but that was, help me here, 11 episodes, not a lot of episodes. And since then, I don't watch anything. Now, on Instagram, I'm titling those things, I'm writing all the copy. There's a way for you to come in at 3rd and a half base. Just don't judge the dugout to 3rd and a half base, and also know that in an hour, you're putting out another piece of content.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you have the unluxury of having a viral hit, too many people then are looking for that moment again.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a real killer. If you get unlucky and have something go crazy, you then get stuck looking for crazy, which means you stop making. Make sense? You know, for me, I make 100 pieces of content that add up to 4 million views instead of being crippled for 9 days making one video, hoping for 4 million views that gets 37,000 views.
Yeah. And now that we get to do it so sustainably and just transparent, like 1 month will make 30 grand on the Facebook page, the next month makes 5. And so in hiring and trying to allocate where necessarily if I'm paying her $20 an hour to do TikTok to get me there because reach is amazing, then I'm not necessarily monetizing that yet, but also.
It's also recognizing that the second you're over focused on monetization is the second that you're limiting your upside. So to me, it's more about, can you get into a mental place of realizing how little do you need to live so that you don't think about monetization at all. Every time you pander to the monetization, you're limiting your upside. Because inherently you start making things for the monetization, not for the audience. You get into a new machine.
Yeah.
Your own machine.
Lose the authenticity a little bit.
It's whether it's authenticity, like whatever word we want to put against it, the second your day is about waking up and figuring out how much money YouTube or Facebook's gonna make to you versus what's going to make somebody really want to watch this is the day you start the process of not being able to win.
Yeah.
You know how fun it is that not a single piece of my content, back to a lot of business model here, you know what it feels like to not make any content with the thought of how does this create a top of the funnel scenario to a landing page that converts to my livelihood? Yeah, you know, looking at some of you knowing your business models, that puts me in a position of being able to win. That's why it's happening. It also is why you're here. Whoever brings the most value wins, not whoever creates the perception of the most value. That person wins in the short term.
The last thing, if I may, would be I actually want to build something. You know, I want to build a personal brand, not just, I make Facebook videos because that can be done, and I actually want to build something, and I think there's a wide open gap in the marketplace for like a female James Corden that doesn't have all J-Lo and Justin Bieber.
Let me tell you a couple things real quick on that. That is absolutely true, but don't think of it in a traditional way. Think of it as more of like everybody's gonna monetize. We're all individuals. Everyone here has the actual ability to pull this off. It's just that some people will make $17 a year and some will make 17 million, but there are plenty of female, like the more you spend time in the classic model, the more likely you'll get upside. All you need to think about is how do you bring the most value, period, end of story, and then it will manifest. I never think about, everybody I see who wins does a much better job of not trying to be some variation of a sentence applied against somebody who's already famous. Yeah. Don't even think that way. Think 100%, how do I make content that people will like? That's how you put the chickens in the tub. You need to basically live in a humble framework in perpetuity, and that's how you get the most stuff. Just them. Just them. Them. Because that leads to creativity. Like if I care, you know, we've been our most creative when I finally broke through of saying over and over, don't pander to the machine, even though I knew, and I would tell D-Rock, I'm like, fuck, we're pandering to the machine on Instagram. Like we know what's working, and the second I finally, like after a month, because I'm like, fuck you, dude, don't be a hypocrite, do your thing. That's when, if you look at the last 100 posts I've had, they've been far more creative. That's where the cartoons come from. That's where the upside down post comes from. It's just where the creativity's coming from. And inevitably, there will be a piece of content that changes the course because of it. All the trash talk content, that over indexes, that would have never happened if I wasn't willing to do something that wasn't obvious.
Do you think there's value, the scan, like the data, here's what you missed from your favorite YouTube
Yeah,
videos,
of course.
Facebook?
Curation, DJing always works. We're busy. And if I can go to the best finds and you can tell me what the 4 best memes of the day are, that saves me time. Curation works because it saves time. We want time saving. So
Delivery method would you do it?
they all,
Messenger?
I think text messaging is the most interesting platform emerging in the world. So that would be my first choice because you'll get 100% consumption against your list. Messenger does a very good job of that as well. WhatsApp can make you go global. So email still works. Not, so there's
Give them the choice.
I know, but
Delivery?
100%. All of it. That's what I do. This is why I always say, watch what I do, not what I say. You want audio? Got you. You want video? Got you. You want email? Got you. You want written? Yep. LinkedIn? Good. Cartoons? Good. I don't care.
Yeah.
No friction for consumption.
So I've been, much like Adley, been doing the one-man band for a long time, so I also turned into full-time. And I've got the product side, the digital products, downloads.
How much are those, how to build a coffee table? How much do they cost?
Transaction.
Keep going.
Yeah, and what I found is that I've been growing those, doubling them year over year. And so it's starting to get big, it's about 20% of my business.
What do you spend on acquisition and where do you spend it?
It's all organic.
All organic.
100%.
That's great.
So my whole business,
You know why that's great? Because that's terrible.
right, because I'm not doing the upside.
Correct.
Right.
In the world, and again, in a world, because I know a lot of you have this context, you can't underestimate how underpriced this media is.
Right.
Like Instagram swipe up ads for you with the right content would be uncomfortable conversion. Pay 2, get 9. Pay 2, get 9. Pay 3, get 9. At scale.
Right.
This is how businesses go from 4 million to 40 million in a year. Because once something works, you can pour lighter fluid in perpetuity.
Right. Part of the scaling, I'm trying to figure out how to scale. So about 50% of my business is sponsorships in between direct, long-term, product placement, things like that. About 20% in the plans, about 20% in the ads. Google AdSense on my blog.
The plans.
The plan, that's what I was going to say. For like scaling down, like I said, I'm a one-man team.
Hire and invest.
So from there, that's my question is would it be getting a Facebook ad manager?
Yes,
Would that be
it's getting a math person. You've got the art down. You need math.
I am a math guy, but.
By the way, I believe that to be true.
Right.
Then you got,
I need the hands to do it.
math is a commodity. Art is not.
Gotcha.
Got it?
Yeah.
If you're like me, math and art, I gave up on math a long time ago. I'm good at math. I understand what it costs I understand the concept of pay $9 for a wine customer and look at the back end and my profit's 11 and keep going until that doesn't work. And then if I'm upside down, then I think about the lifetime value and I look, we're the best wine store in the country. So they keep coming back. So actually 11 is okay. Most companies it's not because they don't have return business and blah, 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 right? But I gave all that up because everybody can do math. Meaning anybody that can do math does math because it doesn't move. Art moves by the second. The culture moves.
So how would you,
I'd hire a math person.
and where would I go to find, and that's been my problem, is trying to find folks.
Where are you based?
Nashville.
So there's a million ways to do this, right? We'll try to send you some recommendations. I don't know who former Vayner employees are that live in Nashville. There might be like, you could hire. I think one of the great moves is to hire a small agency and then steal their employee. Put out, that's a good idea. Like interview 10 small Facebook agencies in Nashville and meet them all and be like, I really like Karen. She seems sharp. Hire that one and then try to steal her.
From there.
Yeah.
And then the scaling of the product tree, the product offering. So I'm now bundled. So instead of doing 9, I'll do 5 plans for 29, 30% discount. You get all my plans for $99. Looking at from the product perspective.
You know what I don't like about that yet is you're making all that judgment off the history of organic, and I don't know what the upside is yet on proper media.
Right. Well, that's my
I would sell them individually at the highest dollar amount and test them. How many different products are there?
Okay, about 30.
I would test them all at scale across all LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, for 6 months, have a real understanding, and then make the decision that you're asking right now off of far more data.
Okay. My concern was just the acquisition cost of our product would be too high.
It might not be when you're actually arbitraging against the most underpriced attention. It might be, but it might not be. There's also the question of if you have a ton more customer, you pay 14 against 9. First of all, why 9? Like if it's costing you 14 and you raise it to 17 and it works, and now you're using that audience to triple your sponsorship business. A lot of things that people don't do is they don't play chess. They go too binary. If I've got those revenue streams that you have, I would say to myself, you know what? I'll break even on the products because I want to go to scale, but I'm going to siphon that attention from the products on this content so that I can ask 10x on the sponsorship side. It's kind of like, I got it. I got it.
Huge following on YouTube.
You're the reverse because that was the cadence and how you did it.
Right.
You can also reverse it back.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? All of a sudden, I may want to pay you $1 million a year. They may. You've got to play on both fronts to find out.
Right. Okay.
Clouds and dirt, right? When the reason that works for me is like, that's how I think. Like, you always have to play on multiple fronts because it might be the upside down thing. Could you imagine, and businesses are more likely to overspend.
Right.
Got it?
Yeah.
So you might be able to get a $500,000 sponsorship that makes no fucking sense, which then allows you to say, oh fuck, now you see where I'm going, right?
Yeah.
It's more likely you get grossly overpaid by a sponsor to then use those dollars to sell lower funnel than the other way around, because that's the market.
Right.
Got it?
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, so I have a question. My CRM, my SaaS company, basically it consists of about 72 different products within the product itself. And so it's pretty complex, sophisticated, and everybody has their own value system. If I called on you, you might be interested in 5 out of 72 of those things, but if I don't mention them up front, I get hung up on or tossed away.
Okay.
So my main issue is from a media standpoint of marketing, and just from I'm calling you, crossing my fingers that you pick up. What do you think would be the best way to kind of condense the entire, 72 products into one easy, simple to say, like, this is what the fuck we do?
There's no way to condense 72 different value props quickly.
Okay.
I think one, you need to look at it. How long have you been doing it?
We've been building it, developing it for 2.5 years, and we've been in business for about a year.
You may want to figure out if you have 72 features versus 72 products, first of all.
Okay.
You also need to figure out which 10 products most convert.
Okay.
It's like any retail store or any .com, like what retailers are starting to figure out. I mean, this is the big challenge I'm going to push to my wine store. It used to be, hey, Dad, it was my agenda. We're going to have the biggest selection in the fucking world. We win. It's actually, that becomes crippling. And I've been trying to push my dad to create these WL50 stores where they're tiny stores with only 50 wines from Wine Library, because people don't actually want choice. It's why Wine Text works. One product a day, very simple, boom. I don't want to think. So I think you're making people think too much. So I think that there's probably 4 products that are 80% of the actual action, and that's where my comms would come in. And you might be going on too much of an ideology that I have to get to all of these things. I think you need to really look at usage. What I would do is look at usage. That's why I asked you how long. I would look at all the usage of the product, which is what's great about a SaaS business, and say, fuck, actually these 6 things are 80% of, and that's gonna happen. Because some of those products are dog shit and some of them are the fucking thing. That's the nature of the game, right? That.
And the other question that would lead me to is, how do I go into market if I was going to do paid media? I make a lot of content, and I try to do my best to kind of...
Who's buying your product?
Primarily an end user, a salesperson, or a small organization right now with maybe 10 salespeople in it.
LinkedIn, bro. You need to make 25 pieces of content a day for LinkedIn, specific. When people think of salespeople as one thing versus a saleswoman who happens to be a Falcons fan, that's a whole different, my game is in perpetuity. People are like, salespeople? And I'm like, no. They're like, how do I make 100 pieces of content? I'm like, okay, well, first of all, there's 50 states. So, there's 50. Hey, Alabama, Hey, salespeople in Alabama, it's your boy. That's already 50, because I can promise you when you run ads against small businesses or sales organization in Alabama and it starts with what's up Alabama, that already does better than it says what's up, it's your boy Gary. I know it's true. You start then saying, then do that piece of content when the Auburn Alabama game is going on and you make some sort of reference point that says, if you're an Auburn fan and leave a comment, or if you're a Bama fan, leave a comment in LinkedIn, whoever wins the game, that person gets 10% off, the other one gets to cry twice. And so if you look at the collective reaction to that idea, that's why I win, because I'm in the game of ideas and then just making shit. LinkedIn is uncomfortably underpriced. Organic, let alone paid. You need to go, if you made no content anywhere else, which is so against my macro thesis, but if you didn't, and you made 100 pieces a day for LinkedIn that was specific to psychographic, demographic, location, age, gender, sex, you will win.
Crush it. Okay, that helps out a lot.
It's really, I know it will. And what's really awesome for me is it's gonna work.
Yeah, I believe it.
Good.
Just, yeah,
It's kind of like believing that if you eat well and you work out every day, you'll look better.
Right.
I know you believe it. I'm telling you to fucking do it.
Yeah. What would you say would be the second best place?
Nothing.
Just LinkedIn.
Meaning you can't imagine, you know what that would be like if we were like kids and only wanted to eat candy and I literally walked in right now with a fucking truck full of candy and you'd be like, yo, where else is there candy? I'm like, motherfucker, we can't eat all this candy. That was the question.
So push all my chips on LinkedIn.
Yep.
And just destroy it.
Yes, but bring them value.
Of course.
Well, like that's a challenge too. You know, like that's not so easy.
I don't think it's terribly easy, but I think with enough content, I can start digging into it.
And then start reading comments. Yeah. Ask questions. One of the things that very few people do is make content to ask questions. I love that because then you get answers in the comments, which then leads you to the next piece of content. Yeah. So much of my content is actually not made for any other thing than an insight to a hypothesis. It's how I got to all the content that I talk about today. There was no strategy session where I'm like, I'm gonna make content about parenting. That was a thing that happened out of making all the content that made me get to the realization of so many opportunities and vulnerabilities. That's why it resonates. The reason my content resonates is it comes from the community.
Thanks. Okay, so we have about a 45, 50 person agency focused on tourism.
Yep.
We're strong in 2 markets. Well, I want to scale into other markets for saturation.
Markets in like genres or in physical markets?
Physical markets. So like Destin, Florida, Wisconsin Dells, and Myrtle Beach.
Okay.
For example, we oversaturate the market, then we go to the next one. But we're struggling because these aren't markets that we physically live in. They're markets that we're going to. We have clients there, but not a major foothold like we do in the others. So, and like, there's literally like 100 things I think I should be doing. So then we try a little bit of it, and then we don't see the result, and then we just try.
Bail.
Yeah, we're trying too much. So.
And the reality is, and I understand where you're going with this, is you know in your soul that you're not doing enough to actually see the full results of it. So you're just kind of caught in this hamster wheel of half pregnant, and then like, I get it. I'm emotional about this because there's like 10 things I tried to get Wine Library to do. They did it for there was this incredible concept I had of pricing every wine in the store at a 1 bottle level, a 6 bottle level, and a 12 bottle level. Like that's it, like case discount, like it fucking was going to be big. Literally because Passover was coming up. My dad wanted to put kosher wine in that spot, tore down the whole concept for 3 days worth of business of no money and like destroyed, like didn't give it the full chance to do what it was gonna do. What I think you need to decide is profitability. The answer to your question is actually very easy. You know I can even tell the way you asked it, you actually know it's right, you just have to make less money. You have to plop someone there or plop it longer and eat the crow of no results because it fucking needs 9 months to get to the results. You're in the sales transaction mindset, not in the brand building mindset. And you know it. And now the question becomes, can you afford it? That becomes the thing I don't know in a moment like this, but then when the person says no, and I'm always pushing, and you guys know this, make less money this year to build something bigger, make less money. That's how you do it. It's called investing in your shit. And then there's also audit the 20% of things you spend money on that are fucking garbage. Your worst employee, some dumb thing that you're not even paying attention to, that you're recurringly getting billed for, like your snacks are overpriced. That was the big brouhaha at Vayner this year. I eliminated we were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on bars and 4% of the people were eating it, so I fucking eliminated it. Of course everyone acted like they ate it every day of their fucking life, and I'm fucking Hitler, but but that was just a good business decision based on what was actually happening. Yeah, they're good, they're scrappy here. I'm talking about fucking New Yorkers. Got it? That's the fucking answer.
Okay, so I'm Jody. I work in landscaping.
I apologize, Jody. And if you can really find a system where you can get the highest kind of person to make the impact at the lowest possible cost, you can really scale the fuck out of this. And you're looking for a Swiss Army knife, right? She or he's got to, you got to find an entrepreneurial tendency person, right?
Yep. Okay, Jody, Earthscapes, we're professional landscaping based in Chattanooga, and I don't actually own this company. So
I heard.
I'm sales and marketing, so I'm kind of wearing two hats, and we're small enough for a lot of us in the office to be wearing multiple hats.
That makes sense.
So I have two questions. The first one is, how do you kind of balance that?
Sales and marketing or not owning the company?
The sales and marketing is the first piece. So I want to.
Well, the good news on that is that's like a brain and a heart. Yeah. It's that's honestly, if you really synthesize what I've been up to, and even so far halfway through, people think they're marketing, but they're actually selling. Totally.
Well, and then the other piece of that is there separation really between your business and what you're doing and yourself? I mean, so we're hearing a lot of people talk about content, putting content out. The content doesn't necessarily have to directly relate to what you're trying to sell.
Not only doesn't it have to, it shouldn't, to get the maximum upside. Now look, some owners are not meant for content. Yours may not. This is where you get into Snoopy. Maybe your breakthrough is a cartoon in stick figure form, and that cartoon is the thing that can do everything. But yes, for everybody here who's doing any kind of personal branding, I do so much more works for me because I'm into wine and the Jets and garage sailing, and all of it people try to theoretically say is wrong. You're stretched in, what do you represent? I mean, when I started garage sailing on Trash Talk and on Instagram, so many of my smartest friends hit me up immediately, on Instagram story first day before Trash Talk, and we're like, yo, you can't do this. You look stupid. This is crazy. You're on the verge of becoming one of the most important business people. What are people gonna think? I'm like, the fuck are you talking about? You mean you want me to pander to the ivory towers? What are people gonna think? I think that hundreds of thousands of people are about to make an extra $1,000 a year that they need for a better family vacation, and their life will be better. And I'm not worried about the fucking CEO of fucking, worried about the fact that I garage sale.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm obviously speaking for the company when I'm
Yes.
doing marketing for them. So can that just be me? Can that be my voice?
Of course it can. I think more importantly, the question becomes, the voice needs to be something that brings the most value to the audience. And so the voice takes on a lot of layers. Of course it can be you, but let me give you an example. I think the voice should be all of the following. You, when you're out to dinner with your girlfriends. You in the office. The founder when he or she is golfing. What people don't understand is it's not a singular voice. There's a million different reasons why I would consider letting you cut my lawn or hedge my flowers or whatever the fuck you do, right? There might be a million different things.
Totally.
And how you do that on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter and all these platforms, Google, on Google where it's all intent-based marketing, that is more sales. Google AdWords is selling, not marketing. On Instagram, it's fucking marketing, it's visual, right? So don't get caught in that place where I think a lot of us were taught to do, which is like, what's the voice? Even if it was just you, I have a funny feeling there's at least 13 different versions of you given the circumstances you're in. I have a funny feeling you're a totally different gal when you're best friends on a weekend in Vegas on a girls trip than you are in this room right now. You should see Dio when he's with his fucking boys. Should go directly to jail. So I think that's creative contextually at scale. They're knowing enough about Chattanooga. There's the hills and across there's different things going on here, right? And they need to see different things. Some of them are only going to play at a certain price point. Others want, a different, like, so that's how you have to reverse engineer the attention. What has the company spent money on historically or currently?
In terms of marketing?
Yep.
Not that much.
All word of mouth?
It's a lot of word of mouth, a little bit of print advertising, and
Direct mail?
A little bit.
Yeah. Direct mail and print are great because Facebook can do better.
Yeah.
That's where you have to take 20 to 50% of that budget and show them.
Okay.
How much scrutiny are you under by ownership? A lot, right? It's a small business. Yeah.
We don't have a huge budget.
I believe that to be true. There's no reason, a landscaping business in Chattanooga should not have a large budget. But why do you exist? They understand that marketing matters?
Yes.
Like, I would argue that that's incredibly progressive to begin with. An employee for a family-owned business that is in landscaping, to have a marketing executive means that somebody there understands.
Totally. And they're trying to grow too, and they know that's the best way to grow.
It's awesome. I think influencer marketing, you should absolutely right now open your phone, go to Instagram, search Chattanooga, find the top posts and DM people and offer them free service. So if you go to Instagram, one of the things, any local business here, searching the city that you're in, then they give you all the pictures and there's top or recent. You hit top, you click it, you see if somebody's visiting Chattanooga for the, for something, or do they live here? If they live here, you DM them and say, very simply, hey, I think you're an influencer in Chattanooga. I believe that if you took a photo or made a video on your actual feed, not in your stories, because that disappears too quick, about us, and we will give you in return a 200 or 500, or I don't know the business well enough, free service for it, that's good for our business and good for you. 2 out of every 10 will say yes. 5 out of every 10 will say yes. That's a whole lot of local awareness.
Cool.
Tactics.
Thanks.
First year, what people don't know is that 80% of my comments were stay in your lane, wine boy. Meanwhile, I was a businessman before you knew me. Like, I'm in my lane.
Right.
But.
And so my question is, from a prioritization standpoint.
Yes.
Because that audience matters. It's worth something. And so I don't want to just let it go.
It's worth less than you think.
Really.
Yes.
That was where I was going to go.
I get it. It's worth less than you think. And this is why these are so fun. It's only worth something if they're willing to use you or bring awareness to you. In a literal sense of, is it worth something in a raw business form? The answer is, the only audience of Wine Library that was worth something to me in a transition of business, in theory, was people that also had interest in business, which many didn't. And those are the ones that called me a sellout, or I hate you, or I miss you, or whatever they said. Others came along. It's not worth something.
So that's where my guy was telling me, because, looking at, okay, do I go ahead?
You know what's worth something, in my opinion, how I would launch your absolute business? I would ask everybody, in theory, if they'd like to hire you, and then I would create content around the first 10 people that hired you. And then if nobody wanted to hire you, I would pick 10 people and do it for free.
That was kind of where I was going to go with it.
That's it.
I was going to launch with Keep and do old opt-ins and get everybody back in, see who wants to use me.
Yep.
And if they don't, then just know that's where I'm going.
The other thing you can do, and this works for a lot of the people that just ask questions, so I want to make sure they're going to hear this. You could start a Q&A show. Look, I always talk about watch what I do, not what I say. My reintroduction into content was the Ask Garyvee show. My audience was not that big at that point because I had transitioned to business, but I went dark for 2 years building VaynerMedia. And the way that I reintroduced myself was off a small base to be able to create content, because we weren't blogging yet, I didn't have a podcast yet, was to start a show where people asked me questions on Twitter, that was my biggest base, which led to some awareness because they had to use the hashtag. So now people see they're asking me a question, so that got me by accident viewers. I then picked 5 of them, answered it, put it out for free, and it was incredibly valuable. You can do that with HR questions. You could literally put right now on your LinkedIn, I'm doing this, I don't know if you noticed, by the way, who's got HR macro questions? Take 5 of the questions from the LinkedIn comments, record either video or audio, you answering them, and then re-put out the content into the system. The HR content that I put out on LinkedIn, and obviously I'm off a big base, but it's standardized, always over indexes. It is the conversation.
Because right now what I'm looking at is okay, I'm spending all my time on LinkedIn, right? So that's what I'm spending during my time. And so I'm looking at what's trending for business executives and what they're talking about, what articles are out there, what troubles they're having, those kind of things. And so I'm trying to run off of that and then push out content based on those trends.
I think that's good.
Asking the audience, not asking.
I think both are good.
Okay.
But the asking's easier, quicker, more scale. Because you're doing a lot of work to get to that one piece of content.
It is.
LinkedIn.
Okay.
I would also very much consider doing a podcast, and I think this would work for you. I would think it works for a lot of people. I mean, back to being the mayor, like if you started the Chattanooga business podcast, your landscaping business, the Chattanooga business podcast, and interviewed business people here, it would just bring awareness.
We do, so when I first moved to Chattanooga, I actually met Jody.
Randomly?
Oh, I just saw landscaping.
She went to Sony Landscape.
This is awesome, keep going.
And so when I was in Florida doing the real estate business, I took your digital mayor thing.
Yes.
I did 101 episodes.
Love
of
you.
Pinellas Live.
Love.
Right? And it destroyed. It was awesome. It was great. I loved it. I had so much fulfillment.
It's the life I'm living. I'm winning. Like, I want to be the greatest entrepreneur of this generation, and I do not think that comes solely from making the most money.
Right.
I have to give back to the system, and they both work hand in hand.
So 2 weeks after moving here, I called her and I said, hey, let's have a meeting. And I said, hey, listen, I'm going to do this thing, and you're going to think I'm crazy, but hear me out. And I said, do you want to co-host a show with me?
Unbelievable.
And it's called Nooga Live. We're 11 episodes into it.
Unbelievable. Love you guys.
And we have the best time. We've done the wrong
and it's going to lead to business.
It's been so much fun.
It's been so fun. And it performs really well.
That's fun.
People watch the whole video.
It also leads you to go to the new restaurant that opens. You walk in and somebody says hi to you and you're like, whoa, they know who I am. And then after you get off the 1 second high of like, am I famous? You then convert it into a business opportunity. I'm far more proud of being the architect of Garyvee than being Garyvee. Because I know what it means for business. I mean, it's amazing to take selfies and I love it. I like people and I like attention, that's fine. But that is a distant second compared to the actual strategy behind it. It's great, you're on your way. You need to create a way to make more content. Q&A is a great way to do it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
So with the work that we do in influencer marketing, we probably do 75% is through agencies and not directly with brands. So my question is, how do we build more long-term relationships
By reaching out to them.
to the brands directly?
That's right.
Okay.
I know it's such a simple answer, but that's actually the answer.
Okay.
Now the question becomes how, what size, what do you do when you reach out to them, what value prop are you offering them?
Right. Because what we're doing, a lot of times a brand or an agency will only be working on a
Of course.
particular project with.
You're a vendor. You're a vendor. Here's what I would do. I would reach out to all the businesses around you, email them, or let me go old school. One of my favorite moves is overwhelming somebody with something physical. It doesn't work on me because I get so much mail and so many things sent to me, and I don't like stuff that we actually have the reverse problem where I feel bad that people are sending me like $500 items that Dio's stealing them and selling them on eBay. Right? Like it's really like actually something we have to figure out. But in the reverse, if you were to send somebody something that looked like a wedding invitation, high quality, or like a fruit basket, or influencer marketing, just, homemade cookies from a local company that you want to give some support to, and inside were a bunch of cookies in TikTok and Instagram logos with a really nice letter that said, look, hi, Nancy, you're the CMO of Aflac in Atlanta. We think influencer marketing is being greatly underused. We've been doing it for 5 years. This is where it gets important. In 34 days, on November 19th, at a private room at this hot restaurant in Atlanta, I am hosting a free, kind of dinner and talk around influencer marketing for the first 25 people that respond to these beautiful cookies. I hope this caught your attention. I hope you understand what I'm actually saying here. If you'd like to RSVP, here's a link, or you can call me. That would work. Okay. Now you've spent $2,000 on cookies, mail, invitations, a private room, wine, and here's what happens when you send 100 of those. 3 people come. And you're sitting there and you're like, fuck Gary, I fucking wasted all this money, this and that. But 3 becomes 6, and 6 becomes 18. And God forbid you're good at writing a letter, and God forbid the cookies look good. Maybe the first one is actually 39. Maybe you even have a problem and it goes the other way. It goes one of 2 ways. It's always, for some reason, nothing ever ends up being the middle. It ends up being 2 people and you're like, fuck Gary, or it becomes 89 people. You have like 4 months of events lined up and you're like, he's a fucking genius. But it's gonna be one of those 2. It's gonna be one of those 2. Okay. Go direct to brand. Okay. Notice what I'm doing. Break through the noise and give them something of value with no expectation in return. Okay. And if you make that dinner a conversation, if this was one big funnel for you to pay me $500,000 a year at Vayner, everything out of my mouth would be different. I'm looking to never see you again and get an email from you that says, I love you. That's different. That's what everybody should be doing. That's how you build something monstrous.
Okay, so from the agency side, how do they look at influencers? Is it?
Agencies care about, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Agencies care about agencies' P&L. It doesn't matter what they think. It will always be here. Because John Wayne is no different than you two. Word of mouth from a human always will play. And I think we haven't even started. Every 16-year-old in America wants to be an influencer. That is their number one goal in life. That will mean much more supply. And the demand is unparalleled. There's a reason there's traffic when somebody gets into an accident. The reason we rubberneck is because we're fucking nosy. There's a reason that reality TV is a monster, even though it's not real, because we're fucking nosy. We like each other. It's why we're not dead. There's been bombs that wipe us off the fucking face of the earth for 60 years, and we're still here. Humans like humans.
I'm so glad. I was just going to say that I wasn't first, because my heart is pounding out of my chest between you and Nick and D-Rock on the same room.
It's very sweet, thank you.
Anyway, and the other funny thing is that leading up to this, I agonized over, I don't have a question, because I consume so much, everything I can think of,
Yeah.
I already know the answer.
Yeah.
I already know what Gary's
Yeah,
gonna say.
that's right.
What I don't even have. But now I have a million questions, so I have to kind of.
Yeah, because you can see that what's so great about this and why I think this has been a successful program is some of this shit, like this is where it gets good. What's really great about this is when you have a product that has a cost of entry of the size of this, you have real people. We're pretty intense about how we scrutinize anybody trying to come in, and one insight given to a real person, like that's why strategy exists. Like nobody really wants to pay for strategy. Like it seems like a bad idea kind of in some way, but the blueprint matters. And I can get very specific, and there's been a lot of stuff I feel good about here that I'm like excited to see how it manifests. So go ahead.
So, the other funny thing is leading up to this is, I already know how you feel about school.
Yes.
I know how you feel about science.
Yes.
Okay.
But I think you may also know that's a focus group of one.
Right.
You know, like history is the subject that I got the best grades in, and I continue to use it every day in business because I pattern recognize on prior things. I already know what's gonna happen with Netflix and Amazon and all the OTTs because that's what cable did to network TV. Like I already know. And more importantly, something that I've done a much better job of clarifying, and I'm trying to do a better job of, is there are plenty of people that get value out of learning that way. I write books because people learn that way. And as you can probably imagine, active is always gonna resonate more with me, right? Like that could have potentially been the thing that unlocked. Somebody dictating to me information to memorize next Friday was not gonna cut it for the way that I was built, but actually being, like I could have absolutely learned something from working a garden to understanding the process of those 9 weeks to make something happen that I could be deploying against something I'm doing today. I just wasn't given the chance because everything is so one size fits all.
And that's what I think the core of what I love
100%.
is that I was that nature kid and I was that kid playing with fun
Yes.
and outside. And so it brings me so much happiness to see kids that, I mean, I look for that. I look for the kids. There was a kid last week that walked out to the garden. So we go and we teach the kids in the garden and they come out one class at a time and we're planting and growing and all that. And he just looked broken. He just looked sad. He looked, and I go to those kids first.
Yeah.
And through the whole time, by the end, he was helping me, and I gave him a job. He was carrying these huge pile of buckets with soil, and he was like a different kid after 30 minutes, just being out there. I don't know what he was sad about. I don't even know the boy, but just to see that and to be able to, in a school environment,
It's really cool.
find something to connect.
It's awesome.
So I guess the one thing, if I had to pick one, was the influencer aspect of it. So I know I have principals that love what I do, that they love the program for their school and for their students. And then there's a whole group of parents that love what their kids come home and say about when they're in the garden. And I've not done anything with that as far as, I think it's just goal, that if there was a principal that's already an influencer within her principal space, or a mom, but it feels like that's off limits, or that I can't.
Right, and you know, that framework also, like, I've never been a monster fan of like, hey client, can you make a testimonial so I can put it, like, which is why I love the idea of podcast, like host the party, right? Like if you started something called the Progressive Principal podcast, and you interviewing people, and yeah, you'll touch on 2 minutes of like, hey, Sarah, thanks for being here. Obviously, we met a couple months ago with my business, but that's not what we're here for. Tell me why you even said yes to my program. What other programs are you doing? What are you doing that's progressive in comparison? That's how you blow up your business. It's imperative that everybody understands they're in the media business, above and beyond whatever the fuck you do in here. That's how you get to the place of creating the Progressive Principal podcast. And then that becomes the gateway drug to the testimonials you're looking for. Because in that interview, just like D-Rock and I are doing eye contact on the, things we're doing right this second, you will be talking to her. She'll reference something that you did to get her attention. That's what you then clip, where she's naturally giving you a cosign, not a forced testimonial. Like, we all hate those testimonials because it's like a weird situation. The person's wearing like a tie and like, I like using D-Rock's video work. You're like, fuck this,
And I only have one episode, but I started a podcast. I have to put one, I've got one. But it's kids in the garden, and it's just cute. And they're, like squealing about the carrot.
But what you can imagine, I apologize, is what I like about the Principal podcast is you're making something directly for the person you're trying to sell to. I want to get to the decision maker. Fuck agencies. Go to the decision maker, or the person that influences the decision maker. The number one mistake that people are making about TikTok right now is they don't understand that teenage girls make moms buy shit. You win a 14-year-old daughter, you can sell shampoo to a mom. They go too literal. They're like, we don't sell to 14-year-olds. I'm like, do you sell to 42-year-olds? They're like, yes. I'm like, do you know who makes 42-year-olds buy things? They're 14-year-old daughters, because 42-year-old women want to act younger and they're making their daughters friends, not kids. Right? So like, I want you to go to I want you to make a show directly to who, I want it to serve, the progressive, here's why. I want principals to want to be on your show, which inevitably means you're likely to convert them on what you're actually doing. Got it? back to watch what we're doing, not what we're saying. We have on the Gallery Media Group side, where we do original podcasts, a show called the CMO Podcast. It's a good idea. So I would do that. I think the progressive principal angle is gonna lead to the most lead gen for your product. If they're the decision maker, if I'm hearing it right.
Right, yeah, they are. And then there's also a group of parents.
That makes sense. Who, by the way, and I think you'll know this, anybody who's a parent that's so involved is inevitably also gonna be interested in hearing about progressive principles, because you know parents love to hear something that they can bang their principal on.
Yeah.
You need to go listen to this principal, right? So I think they both work for that reason.
With each other. I was saying earlier that Twitter's been huge for me because all I have to do is follow all of the principals and then
Half follow you back and this and that, I got it. Whether it's a podcast or a video show, I really think hosting the party always works. I've been pushing it for a while now, you know that.
Yes.
It works. You just gotta do it. Just like Hey Alabama and Hey Cleveland, you know, like the Washington Nationals pulled off a huge upset in baseball right now, and there are people in Washington who are salespeople that are pumped about it, and you could make a video right now and be like, you know how you just stunned that, like just like Howie Kendrick hit a grand slam, you can hit a grand slam, like that will work.
So 2 more things, speaking of baseball, a very dear friend of mine's son was rookie, his rookie year for the Astros.
Is that right?
So all the baseball stuff and like the whole podcast or whichever it was that I was listening to about who are the rookie cards that are under the radar that nobody knows. So I called my friend and said, this is his rookie card.
That's amazing.
And, he was number 56 in the draft in 2017, and all kind of stuff. But the main thing that his dad said to me, who was my friend from high school, is that he's just a really humble, sweet kid, but he's also super good. So. Anyway,
what's his name?
Corbin Martin.
Oh, I know exactly who this is. As a matter of fact, man, Lou, who's one of my admins, is gonna lose his mind. He's like a big fan of Corbin's. That's awesome. Thank you so much. It's awesome. D-Rock, I don't want to lose it. Yes, gang. What's been up? No storms this season?
We were close.
I know, I saw. The context there is we were rocking and rolling, and like, thank God we were rocking and rolling because they had a real storm, unfortunately. Is that right? That was rough.
But we're coming back.
Good.
Slowly back together.
Anything I can answer? Obviously there's.
Oh yeah, okay, so kind of what you're touching on with like going back to retail and promotions.
Yep.
So obviously you know our background, and that's kind of how Mr. Lindsay brought everything up, was just cheap. And so I think kind of where my struggle is right now is our sales have been decent only because of the storm, and people really did have to replace everything. But,
oh right, I didn't even think about that.
Right, you know,
that makes
but
sense.
Then how do you know when you do an incentive or do a coupon or run a sale? How long do you say, we're gonna run this until we, like, you say 30 days and you're like, well shit, nothing's happened, and then you just like move on to something
The
else?
second you show people that you will go away from your word because you've lost the leverage because you didn't move something is the second you start dying. It's the #1 flaw that Wine Library did the last decade, and I've completely taken them away from it as I've gotten a little more involved to like, customers are smart as fuck. They'll just wait for the, tent sale sounds awesome, except when everyone gets into a behavior of waiting for it because it used to be once a year and now it's once a quarter or whatever it may be, right? It's all about, I always tell wine, I recently have been yelling, I'm like, I'd rather die with that fucking wine than to show the audience, the customer, that we're willing to bend when we don't sell enough, because then they won't trust anything. That. And there's also repackaging, bundling. I mean, I'd rather, laws with alcohol are pretty tricky, but I'd rather donate wine to the local PTA events. Like, I'd rather give that fucking furniture to the homeless and let the local news, and call the local news. You see where I'm going? Can't give up the leverage. We're too smart. It's why so many of the companies in retail are dead. They became sales oriented, and we were just like, why do you think free shipping is mandatory? They did it too much, we waited. They got caught. You gotta hold the line.
So really building the brand, because like
Yeah.
this whole year we've just been trying, and so I've actually started putting myself in front of the camera a little bit more.
And what are you saying?
So just trying to like show like I'm a new face.
Yeah, what are you seeing? Anything interesting? I mean, it's early.
I mean, local, you
Yeah.
know, I get a lot, like I work out at Orange Theory, so it's just funny because they're like, hey, I saw you, and I'm like, you know, but we see each other every day, so it's okay, but it's just interesting to kind of see even people that I know that are just reaching out, or somebody I may not have heard from in a while, or my mom's friends are like, oh, we saw your daughter, and she's like, oh, on what? And she doesn't even know, but, you know, so it's still kind of early, and I'm toying with a couple ideas for some education, like I know you say entertain and education.
The other thing I'm obsessed with your store, and you might remember this, you have so much square footage. This is the number one thing I'm thinking about. My dad's second floor is a complete waste of time. People don't like going to the second floor. When we used to have a ton more foot traffic, like every retail establishment did, that worked because people went upstairs on Saturdays and really shopped premium wine. The foot traffic set up, like it's just not the same. And I'm like, this is not, you wanna go real funny? Like I literally, right now, between wine text and helping out, like I've really fixed the business. So right now I have a ton of permission. I literally called my dad, I was like, I think I wanna turn the second floor into a baseball card store. And he's like, okay. He's just so happy. So like I still think that you guys turning part of your store into a WeWork, into a sports bar, like I will push you on this every time. It's your biggest asset that is underutilized. I think every book club, every PT, like you should become the community center of, you don't need it as much as you have it. Cut out the, store within store. Like fuck it. Go to the 3 hottest stores in town, the ice cream store, and be like, you want a second location? I'll charge you nothing. It's an asset. It's an asset. You've gotta, and by the way, I'll go on a call, I know I have to run to Atlanta soon for a speech, but like, I'll do a call with you. We can keep innovating. Like, you have to turn that inventory into an asset.
Because I think like what we talked about within the mentor program, like that X factor, like I still feel like we're missing it.
Correct.
Like the new e-com is getting ready to launch. So we've already started to implement some of
The
that,
X factor is going crazy. Why can't you build a stage in the middle of your thing and do open mic for all local talent? You could. You'll have to use Facebook to get them to even know that's a thing. But I'm telling you right now, the atomic bomb in your business, I believe, is your square footage internally. And I do think, and this is gonna seem like a contradiction, I do think you should look into texting. And I think you should have a weekly text deal. But I think you have to be smart what the deal is so it doesn't undermine your core.
because we have like a texting program, but right now it's really just for like a coupon. So I'm looking to get away from that.
And do something that's a little bit more engaging.
Value.
Yeah.
Value driven.
Because coupons can die real fast if people just don't value the coupon. Right. Discounting is a drug. And it can turn out bad.
Well, we have that. So it's so rough where we are because Mr. Lindsay, that's how he built it.
I remember it, if you remember, it came so natural to me because I'm like, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody,
I know.
take $500 off,
Honestly, between being the way my dad built his business, between retail, between garage sale and auction culture, like I remember you guys breaking it all down. I remember a lot, so I remember a lot of it. I remember thinking like, man, I wish the action must have been fun at its heyday, just to go there. I'm sure people went just for the action.
Oh yeah, sure.
I think you need to turn your place into a community event. I think you need to hack. You need to get very creative. Why can't kids come and Easter egg and pumpkin pick in your store? Like I'm being serious. It sounds crazy, but I'm like, why couldn't you buy, or forget about buy, why couldn't you go to the people that sell pumpkins wherever, say, hey, let's make a deal. I want you to give me 100 pumpkins. I'm gonna put them throughout our store. I'm gonna spend $100 on Facebook ads saying, we got pumpkins from this, we'll tag you. Come this Saturday for free pumpkin,
And that's been ideas that have popped up. I guess I was more concerned, like Easter egg hunting with the kids, because then I can already see it's like pillows and cushions are just flipped over, and then like that was more my concern.
That, by the way, that's a really good answer to that idea. And D-Rock will tell you, like, all I want to do is ideate and then try to make it operationally practical. If I was a partner, I'd be like, fuck it. We've got employees standing around all day Monday. We'll clean up the fucking cushions on Monday instead of jerking off.
Well, and I like
That's what I would say. That's what literally I would say. I'd be like, fuck it. Mario and Nick and Sarah will fucking actually work on Monday instead of standing around waiting for somebody to come in.
Yeah.
That would be the answer. That's how I think operationally.
Right, and then like how you say, don't say no for the other person. That's where I stress within.
But you didn't say no in that scenario. You worried about the ramifications.
Right.
And then I said, and by the way, you might be at a place where you don't have that many employees. I'm making assumptions here, but if you have employees, well, good. Monday morning in retail is not the busiest fucking thing of all time. We'll clean them up then. But having fucking 100 families come to our store for the first time in months, maybe, or even ever heard about it, is a good thing for us. This was the biggest frustration I had. I like picking on my dad because we see things differently. I created this program 2 years ago. You might remember, D-Rock, Nick, you remember this too, where we were doing free food at Wine Library on Facebook events, and it fucking crushed. But because my dad saw a couple people, and this is the best part of the story, because they were Russians, because he knows how Russians work, trick the system to come back in and get another $20 worth of free food, he killed the whole thing. He couldn't stomach it. Meanwhile, it was building his business because even though we were losing on the food, we were acquiring customers, the store was busy. Even the fact that the store looked packed on a Saturday that it normally didn't, because we're on a very busy road, made more people just come to see what the fuck was going on. But nope, the emotion of somebody double dipping, Igor trying to break the system made my fucking dad kill it. Retail is in deep shit. Everything retail needs to do is figure out how to get people to fucking come in. Permanently, like a stage or a WeWork, or you're a promotions for fun, locally idea machine, and you take advantage of Facebook and Instagram locally to drive awareness and conversion. That is the framework you have to do.
Yeah.
Or you go super macro and go store within store and you lease out. Yeah.
Like, I think we told you we bought the
I remember.
store,
Yep.
so we're actually pricing out clearing and building, so moving the warehouse, that opens up even more space to then.
Which is even scarier for me. I want you to have less space.
Right.
If I could chop off Wine Library's second floor, I would. I can't. But going laterally, I'd be condensing and fucking putting up a wall and leasing and have a set, like, retail is in trouble.
Yeah.
I don't have to explain to you what Wayfair and all this stuff is. The trends are not coming back.